Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 21 of B-Road Ballers, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of hot hatches, old and new, big and small, that are featured on the 6th version of Gran Turismo, or the 6th mainstream version. And in this episode we're featuring a vehicle which isn't exactly the most exciting prospect of hot hatch. Technically, you could say that it's actually not even a hot hatch. In terms of spec and performance it is, but usually with hot hatches it's about the whole package. And this car visually, and as far as marketing, isn't exactly a hot hatch in the strictest sense. It is the Citroen C4, and this is based on the Ford Focus, much like the Volvo C30, but unlike the Volvo and the Focus, this isn't exactly the first thing that would come to most people's mind when you think of a hot hatch, and the kind of hot hatch that you'd want to go and spend your money on Gran Turismo. It's one of those vehicles, kind of like the Vectra that I highlighted last week, that is very easy to overlook, to underappreciate, and to just completely forget about. You just don't hear people on Gran Turismo saying, "Ooh, I must remember when I get on Gran Turismo today to buy that Citroen." People just don't say that. It's a Citroen. Now, I'm not saying that Citroens are bad cars. Certainly not. They're very innovative. Not so much anymore as they used to be, but innovative nonetheless. And they do have some pretty striking looking designs. Certainly unique. This car is based on the Focus, but it doesn't look anything like the Focus. And that's a good thing. I like that a company can show a genuinely unique take on a very easy to copy shape. It is very easy for manufacturers to fall into the trap of just copying other designs, but this Citroen really does not do that. Now, being based on the Focus is of course known primarily in its hot hatch form as being a great driver's car. So does that carry over to this vehicle? Well, actually, yeah, it does. It may not have the visual style or the hot hatch status of the Focus ST or Volvo C30, but it does have the performance and spec to more than match up to them. Now, it's notable about this car that when you compare it to its equivalent age Focus ST, it has two distinct advantages. It has disadvantages as well, but it has two notable advantages. One is price. Fractionally, that is. It's not much cheaper, but it's a little bit cheaper than the Focus. But more importantly, the weight. This is around 40 or 50 kilos lighter than the equivalent age Focus ST. And that is a significant advantage for a hot hatch. Now, being a front-wheel drive car, torque steer, especially off the line and out of corners, can be an issue. And unfortunately, in the case of this car, it is an issue. Now, it doesn't make it undrivable, certainly not. It can put in a very healthy hot lap, and it's certainly competitive enough to win races, both against the computer and against real players. But this car does torque steer and wheel spin more than the Focus or the Volvo C30, which, as I mentioned, is also based on the Focus. Now, overall, as far as spec, it's a 2-litre turbo. It produces 473 horsepower and just under 320 pound-feet of torque, which is so pretty decent. And as far as power, it is on the higher end spectrum of hot hatches on the game. It is one of the more powerful hot hatches that you can get. And it's actually quite surprising when you compare this to other hot hatches, how many of them it's actually got more power than. Sometimes vehicles which you wouldn't expect it to have more power than. Now, as far as weight, as I said, it weighs less. It's at less than 1100 kilos. It's actually 1088. And it puts out a pretty impressive 435 horsepower per tonne, which again is pretty good for a hot hatch, especially a large hot hatch. This is not a small car by any means. The PP is also quite surprising on this vehicle. It's a surprisingly high 535, which you wouldn't really expect from looking at the vehicle. Now, as far as price, I mentioned it's fractionally cheaper than the Focus, but this is still just under a 32 grand hatch. So as far as hatches go, it's certainly not the most affordable. but it's not that bad either, especially for a fully premium model with some pretty interesting visual modifications that I won't spoil if you haven't bought the car yet. But overall, its performance, as I mentioned earlier, is certainly good enough to win races and to take on the Focus ST and the Volvo C30, but also beyond those two obvious choices, it can take on other hot hatches as well, especially in the front-wheel drive category of hot hatches, which is a highly competitive one. So overall, this vehicle is the kind of car that I would actually recommend, ironically enough, to Ford Focus ST fans. Why? Well, think about it. You're getting a Ford Focus ST that doesn't look anything like a Ford Focus ST. You're getting a car which is the polar opposite in terms of popularity that you could possibly get from the vehicle that it's based on. You turn up in a public lobby with the Focus, people are going to notice you, and they're going to view you as a threat. You turn up in this Citroen, nobody cares, and that is a distinct advantage to have. So, that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.